Hello everyone and welcome back to the updated tier list. You guys will remember back in the day we had a tier list. Bam! It looked like this. This was my prediction tier list where I was trying to predict how the civs are going to play out in 1.1 Arabia on the patch that was released roughly 2.5 months ago. I don't remember the exact date. But anyway, this is what we ended up with initially. And what we're going to do now is an updated tier list to see how much we think ourselves that we got right or wrong. First off, King of the Desert has now finished, and my plan was to do this after King of the Desert to see if the tournament itself makes a big difference. Anyway, we're on AoEstats.io, and this is King of the Desert. So as you can see, Turks 100% win rate. However, they only were played one game, so there's context to all these win rates. Bohemians as well, only one game played, so the win rate is not really that crazy. Saracens, solid. 4 out of 5. That's not bad. Incas did very well. Italians did well despite playing 3 games. Mayans very well, of course. Gujarat, Aztecs, all these types of cities that you would expect to do well. Bulgarians might be a little bit of a surprise. Chinese, definitely not a surprise there. Franks, not surprising either. Malians, Tatars, Malay, Byzantines, Lithuanians. Those were all the civs with positive win rates throughout the whole tournament. Another bunch of civs on 50% exactly. Khmer having 50% with 52 games sample is pretty impressive. I imagine a lot of those games were against top civs as well, so it's kind of just says that Khmer is a very good civ in my opinion. Vikings as well, Cumans 50%, Bengali. From there we go into the minuses or negatives, and we see Portuguese, surprisingly maybe, one of the civs that had negative win rates overall in the tournament. However, again, context is missing. We don't know exactly who played which civ in this matchup, so it's not necessarily reflective of how strong the civilization is, but it's still nice stats to keep in mind. Spanish, Britons probably underperforming a bit considering they were played 43 times. Dravidians, Poles, Magyars, Huns, Sicilians, Berbers, Hindustanis 36 times played, only 22% win rate. Yikers. Slavs, they were played once, they lost. Romans obviously played 0. Burmese played once, they lost. Koreans played twice, they lost both, and Teutons played 3 times and lost all 3 times. Alright, that brings us to our tier list. I think I'm just gonna go ignore the old tier list myself, just make a completely new list and then compare. Gonna be a bit faster than last. I'm not gonna talk in detail about all the civilizations because there hasn't really been any big balance changes since the patch, so there's not too many details to go through. Anyways, Aztecs. I know a lot of people think Aztecs are not S tier anymore, but I still think they belong in S tier. They're still a crazy snowball civilization, even though Eagles are 5 food more expensive. You're just better in many cases. And then you have the potential for Eagle play, monks with a lot of HP, and so forth. Even Jaguar Warriors are now pretty solid again, so I think Aztecs are still S tier. Bengalis, a civ I believe I had in C tier previously. I have to bump them up to B tier. I underestimated how big of an impact the light cav or the scouts now having bonus damage against skirms actually have on the civ, and I also think the Ratha is also a unit I underestimated a lot. So Bengalis, in my opinion, up 1 tick. Berbers, I think they're also still a solid B tier civ. Cheaper cavalry, fast moving villagers, only from feudal age though. Still a lot of potential. They can beat any civ, but they can also lose fairly often. Bohemians, keep in mind this list is for 1.1 Arabia. I think I might have to put Bohemians in C tier. I think they're just very awkward to play. Now I'm saying it out loud. I'm starting to doubt myself. They can obviously have chemistry in the castlage. You can get handcannons. I'm gonna leave them in C tier right now, but probably Bohemians could also easily enter B tier. Bulgarians, solid B tier civ. Great tools for early aggression, but you do lack a bit of flexibility as the game goes on. But still, solid enough bonuses that the civ probably belongs in the B tier. Burgundians, a very tricky civ to play. I think if you get an easy wall map, Burgundians can be amazing. Maybe even as A tier-ish then. But I also think Burgundians can be played more regularly than people do. People always like super greed and do like all the upgrades before, the age before, and just don't make military. But I think you can even just play without making all those upgrades and you still have a very solid civ on your hands. I think they're B tier. I would not go lower than that at this point, because if you get a easy wall map, Burgundians can also be absolute top A tier, maybe even S tier. If you get that castle up, Costelier, boy oh boy. Burmese, probably a C tier civ. They don't really have too much going for them. There's some potential. You have cheaper wood upgrade. You can play a decent stable approach. You can obviously open range, but you don't have +2 armor on the archers. Rambai are not as broken as they used to be. I struggle to place them higher, but I guess there would be potential and arguments for B tier, but I think C tier is okay. Byzantines are an easy A tier civ. Some might even put them S tier these days. They just counter every civ, but they do like eco upgrades. Very tricky civ. Again, my perception of Byzantines is always I never want to play against them and I never want to play them. But yeah, they are an amazingly good civ and easy A tier. Celts, I think we're gonna have to put Celts in C tier. I know we saw Winchester, for example, play them a bit in King of the Desert. I personally don't think they're that viable. I don't think the Void Raider change has made them that strong in Castle Age either, or much better in Castle Age. And infantry meta has slowly kind of dwindled out a little bit again, even though people were experimenting a lot with infantry in the start. People have kind of figured out how to deal with them now and not be too worried about it. I think the only potential for infantry play these days are like early Feudal Age or early Castle Age. And besides that, you probably don't even play infantry until Imperial Age at some point. So I think Celts C tier, although I believe I had them B tier last time. Chinese, easy S tier as always. They're just too damn good of a civ. Flexible, versatile, you can do anything. They are just maybe arguably still the best civ in the game. Cumans, I think we put them in B tier. They can still get that 2TC boom going. They're very tricky to play against. You can even play normal with them. I still think they are very solid, but I struggle to put them higher than B tier or lower. So I think B tier is where they belong. Dravidians, that's a tricky one now. A lot of people had them probably A tier-ish before King of the Desert. And then a lot of people have seen them play out in the King of the Desert and they have probably dropped them down a tier or two. I personally still think Dravidians have a lot of potential. They are an A-tier civ, although I know a lot of people, this is probably one where people might disagree with me. I think A-tier is a fairly safe place for them to be. If you compare them to any of the civs below right now, I think Dravidians will be better than all of them, and they still have a lot of potential with their opening. The big weakness of Dravidians is the lack of mobility and stable units, but you have so many other bonuses that can make you survive that and take edges elsewhere. And if you get to Imperial Age, you have a really strong Imperial Age with Rumi Swordsman, you have great Halbs, great Skirms, you have Arbalest Bomber Cannons, Elephant Archers. I still think Dravidians are a very good civilization, although recency bias, probably not in favor of Dravidians, but I still think they are A tier. Ethiopians, I think they're an easy S tier. Too many good bonuses. Crossbow meta is still very much a thing. Ethiopians shine in that, and they're easy for them to add, for example, a couple of knights in early Castle Age as well, because you get that extra food and gold, and you have a really strong late game civilization at your hands as well. Shotel warriors are also now pretty decent. So Ethiopians, easy A tier. Franks, another save, easy A tier. Great economy, great early initiative in the game. You get extra HP on the scouts, you can play scout skirms, you can even play crossbow. You just have a lot of things going for you where you can take control of the game, and I think Franks, easy A tier. Results in the tournament showed that as well. So yeah. Goth, I still think B tier. I think Goth is a civ that hasn't been explored enough yet. That longer lasting hunt bonus, free loom, pretty much means that you just have an economic advantage going out of the Dark Age, and then you can kind of play whatever with that in quotes advantage. So I still think Goth, massive potential. If you hit Imp as well, early Imp, late Castle Age and start spamming infantry, I think you can take on a lot of these civilizations above. Still think they belong in B tier, but I would not be surprised to see the future of Goth being something like A tier. Gajara, also an easy A tier. Such good units available to them, like the Shiramsha Rider. Chakram Throwers are amazing as the game goes on. You have the unique tech that makes all your food cost units cheaper. It's just an amazing civilization, great economy in the start as well, flexible tech tree. They are just an easy A tier. Hindustanis, I believe I had them A tier before, but I have to probably drop Hindustanis into B tier. Even though they still have great tank in there as Gulam, you have camels. The fact that you don't have knights make them quite vulnerable in many stages on the 1-1 Arabia. You still have a very good economy though, because your villages are cheaper, so you still get those extra few scouts out, and your economy still feels nice, but your tech tree leaves something to be desired. And I think the more and more people play Hindustanis, the more and more people realize that they're probably not as good as people thought they are, at least not recently, because there's been some balance changes that have negatively impacted Hindustanis, and I think it's starting to show a lot in tournaments as well, and I think they are now officially a B-tier civilization. Huns, I think Huns also are an A-tier civilization, super smooth to play, great flexible, versatile tech tree, and especially in the 1-1 Arabia, never being housed, and having access to mobility, great opening, good economy because of that. I think Huns is still a very, very solid A-tier civilization. Incas, easy S-tier, no question about it in my mind. Just amazing civilization now with all the new bonuses. I don't know if there's any civ where I would feel like, oh, I have a civ advantage if I'm facing Incas. Because even as Chinese, and I'm being against Incas, I would be terrified of that eagle spam. Incas, easy S-tier for me. Italians, probably gonna have to put them in B tier. I think Italians have some underrated bonuses for 1-1 Arabia. Like you have the cheaper advancing the next ages, which with the meta in Arabia now being heavily timing based, something like that can be very helpful, especially for those early Castle Age, early Imperial Age times even. And then even hitting Imp, you have access to condos, you have fully upgraded Hussar, you have Arbalest with extra armor, hand cannon, like cheaper hand cannons, cheaper gunpowder units in general. There's so many bonuses that indicate that Italians should be a really, really good civ in 1v1 Arabia. But when you play them, they don't always feel that good, and the feel is very important. So for now, I think B tier is where they belong, although I could easily make a case for them to be A tier simply by looking at their tech tree and their bonuses. But the feel is still very important, and it's not A tier, unfortunately. Japanese, I think B tier as well. A lot of good bonuses on paper again. You feel like you have a lot of discounts that should help out a lot. But as the game goes on, even though you have fully upgraded knights, Kawacha, whatnot in Castle Age, you still feel like your transition to Imperial Age, especially against a civ that is similar, such as maybe Ethiopians, Byzantines, you're still gonna lack the crucial thing in those types of matchups, which are armored cannons. So I think Japanese have a lot of potential, but I think they're still a B-tier civilization. Khmer, this is a civ that has had really good success in King of the Desert, and I also think, actually I say that they had 50%, but playing Khmer just feels so nice, and I think Khmer are an S-tier civilization on 1v1 Arabia. The flexibility and the ease of economy management in early game, like you don't even need a mill to make farms. So with meta more being like no horse color openings and very, very tight builds, saving that wood on the barracks, also not having to build a mill on a potentially exposed berry line, means that Khmer just have so much flexibility in their openings to always guarantee that you don't take damage. And then you have the easy tech switches as well, right? You can open one range archers and easily add a stable behind while farming without a mill. There's just so many things going for Khmer that I think Khmer now are an S-tier civilization on 1v1 Arabia. I don't think we've ever really judged them as S-tier for a long, long time, but I think especially with the way the King of the Desert maps played out and the meta today, Khmer easy S tier. I would say even easy S tier. Britons are a tricky one. I feel like they have some weaknesses because you always kind of want to go crossbow with Britons or archers on crossbow. So it's like they're very predictable, but still great opening economy. Adding a stable is not too difficult. So I still think Britons are an A tier civ, but I think Britons is being more and more figured out. As time goes by, they might even drop down to B tier for 1v1, although I still think they're a very, very good team game civilization for flank in particular on Arabia. But I feel like Britons are getting more and more figured out. Maybe the future for Britons is actually lower than A tier. Koreans, I think we're also gonna have to go B tier. I'm surprised we didn't see more Koreans in King of the Desert because archer meta was so prevalent. I think Koreans with the free guard towers could be used defensively and offensively. You have armor upgrades for free on ranged units. You have discount on wood cost of units. In hindsight, Korean probably underutilized in King of the Desert. They have a lot of good bonuses, but of course, if you compare them to the top civs, they still feel a bit lackluster. But I think B tier is a nice place for Koreans. Lithuanians, I think they're still an A tier civ. Food at the start, they obviously have changed because you now get food per town center instead of the 150 at the start. So it's a slight nerf in the opening for Lithuanians, but as the game goes on, if you hit Castle, start adding those town centers, you pretty much get like 2-3 villager production for free and on every town center. So that's quite convenient. Very good civ in the opening. You have fast moving spears and skirms. You can go stable, you can go lightest, you can go knights, you can pick up the relics, get that attack bonus. Lithuanians still a very good civ on Arabia. Magyars, probably a B tier civilization. They don't have the economy to match with the tippity-top civilizations, but still a very scary civ on Arabia with a discount on the scouts. You have great cavalry archers as the game goes on, so B tier probably the place. Magyars is kind of like Huns, just a little bit less fluent to play when you have to play with multiple compositions. But if you can play like just stable opening into knights and play only stable, Magyars are still a very, very, very good civ. Malay, I believe I had Malay in S tier previously. I think I'm gonna correct them to an A tier. Although I still think Malay are an incredibly good civilization. They might be on the top of the A tier list, very, very close to S tier. They are still a bit tricky to play. This might also be one of those civs where they just have it's just one of the harder civs to execute. So once they are perfected, they might be one of the best civs in the game. You have amazing 200 swordsmen now. You have still the super cheap elephants. You have faster advancing. Arbalest, Karambits are insane now. The more I talk about it now, I'm starting to think I should put them in S tier again. But I still think that the civs above, actually, when I look at Aztecs, Malay, you know what, I cannot. Malay has to be S tier. It's either that or I would have to put like Aztecs down to like A tier, I think, because I get Malay or Aztecs, I would probably prefer Malay every time. Yeah, Malay just have too much going for them. Like a part of my brain told me that Malay has to go A tier, but looking at it, no. Malay, so many good bonuses. You get the armor upgrades for free now for infantry as well. So many good bonuses. Malay has to be S tier still. Now that I say that, apparently I had Malay in A tier in the previous this video. So upgraded to S tier. Malians, also an S tier civilization. So much flexibility, you drop off more gold. Very versatile tech tree. You only fall off a little bit in post-Imperial Age. Even early Imp, you have like super fast chemistry. You can get those bomber cannons out, hand cannoners, light cab with 14 attack. Malians are just a very strong opening civ. Even though you fall a bit short in the late game, there's still so many good bonuses and versatility in your gameplay throughout the ages that they cannot be anything else than S tier. Mayans, easy S tier as well. Amazing civilization. You know, Mayans have been, I don't know how long it's been since they've been one of the best civs, maybe arguably top 2 civilization in the game for the last 15 years. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Amazing civilization, so many good bonuses, such a good economy. Mongols, that's a tricky one right now. I feel like Mongols might be worthy of an A tier. With the potential for laming for Mongols and just taking that early initiative, early control of the game, I think Mongols are now justified as an A tier civilization. Where I think people might go wrong with Mongols is when they try to play Mangudai. I think Mongols are going to be the best utilized if you play like scout opening to take control of the game. You can switch to crossbows, you can play knight camel. But when you switch to Imperial Age, you probably want to go arbalest, maybe lancers, hussar, maybe cav archers. Obviously Mangudai, amazing unit if you get them up and running, but the investment required for Mangudai, having to have 4 or 5 castles as well, it's a lot. And I think that's where you give up your control of the game when you try to make that switch. So if you just play Arbalest, Cav Archers, whatever natural transition to Imperial Age that isn't unique unit, I think Mongols as well, very strong in that transition too. But yeah, the amount of bonus you get from the hunt, potential for laming, early game, just take initiative. Mongols are a very good civ, and I think they are A tier. Persians, I think we're gonna have to go C tier. On paper, you would argue Persians should be good because you start with extra resources. TC has extra HP, big deal. Your knights have +2 attack against crossbow, which is meta. You have crossbow with thumb ring. Like, you have full upgrades and very versatile tech tree. Persians is pretty much a Chinese until Imperial Age, just worse. But in Imperial Age as well, your tech tree becomes very awkward. You do have trash bows, or crossbows that only cost wood. You have hand cannons, you have bomber cannons, you have halberdiers. But you still feel like you're just missing that power unit that just makes you have a bit like good chances in Imperial Age. So being a worse Chinese is not necessarily bad, but when you don't even have any good switches into Imperial Age, you probably just fall off a bit, and I think C tier. Even though I would argue Persians still have potential to beat a lot of the civs above. For example, against Franks, Persians are probably a pretty solid civilization. Against Huns, probably pretty solid. Britons, sure, give me Persians. But generally speaking, I still think they're quite poor in comparison. Poles, I believe Poles still massive potential in them, but I think they cannot go further higher than B tier. You are a bit limited in terms of your gameplay, although I still think people are just forcing the folwark play a little bit too much. I still think you can just do a regular opening and come out of it okay, and then start focusing on the folwark play. It's a similar thing to how I described the Mangudai earlier. You're forcing it so hard that it becomes so expected, and it actually hurts your development in the game. Still think Poles B tier, very solid civ. If everything goes your way, they're easily B or not easily A or S tier, because once you have that castle up, folwark up and running, Schlachta privileges, Poles just take off. Portuguese, I think they're easily an S tier civilization still. Organ guns have changed, but organ guns are not as dominant as they used to be. But I mean, you don't see too many organ guns anyway in 101 Arabia, so it's not too impactful. I don't think Portuguese had the amount of success you would expect in King of the Desert. I believe they were under the 50% win rate, but I don't think, like, we don't have all the numbers like who played Portuguese in those matchups and whatnot, but when you play Portuguese, you just feel that cheaper gold discount on every single unit is just such a nice bonus. You get extra wood for even taking your berries. You have a very flexible tech tree. There is no way Portuguese is anything except S tier in my opinion. Saracens, tricky one. I think they are a B tier civilization with like extreme highs and extreme lows. Saracens also, you very much force the market play, which means that sometimes it works out and you become an S tier civilization. Sometimes it looks quite silly and you become a D tier civilization. If you're a beginner, stay away from Saracens. If you're a pro, if you're a cheesy player, Saracens might be the one for you. Sicilians, also B tier in my opinion. Still some nice bonuses that gives you utility in the early game. You do fall off a bit in Imperial Age, I feel like, but overall still a solid civilization without too much going for them. If the opening goes your way, suddenly you can find yourself in an amazing spot with an amazing economy and just steamroll your opponent. But with the ranged meta, Sicilians aren't really on top of that, so still probably a B tier civilization. I don't know if we'll use the D tier again. We didn't use it on the previous list, and I have a feeling we're not going to use it on this list either. I think we just have that good of a balance right now. Slavs. Slavs is a civ I regret not picking more in King of the Desert, honestly. On paper, there's a lot of good things going for them, right? Making a barracks, making a range, making a stable, all that gives you 5 population. You have faster farming, cheaper siege, you have good monks, you have good like infantry, you get supplies and gambesons for free. There's so many things that tells me on paper that Slavs should have massive potential. I still think they're not comparable to the top civs, and I think I may have had them A tier previously. I'm tempted to put them A tier again and just fully admit that I should have picked them way more in King of the Desert, because they were one of the civs I had on the side where I'm like, they should be really good, but I don't have the time to test them or try them to figure it out. I will play as in B tier though, although I do believe there's a case to be made. I think Slavs are potentially A tier civ. I have nothing to back that up in physical evidence, so I'm gonna have to go with B tier for now. Spanish, if you're MBL, it's probably S tier, but for a normal human being, I think they're a B tier civilization. They're still, I mean, they have a flexible tech tree in many ways, but they're still not comparable to the best civs in the game. People still expect you to try and force conquistadors a little bit. You can play the missionary strat. Villagers are great in Imperial Age, but like, it's still such a mediocre civ in regards to everything that is really hard to justify placing them higher than B tier. Now the new bonuses with the extra gold per tech is very nice. You get some utility from that. You can open some more special strategies. Maybe you can justify some archers in the start and just make some nice smoother, let's say, transitions. But yeah, they're just not better than B tier. Tatars, easy A tier at this point. Tatars just free thumb ring in this meta is insane. You have great economy with the sheep lasting longer, hill bonuses, especially in Arabia. There's usually so many hills and elevation that Tatars just absolutely shine. I think there even could be a case for S tier for Tatars on Arabia, but I have yet to see enough evidence of that. In the future, I would not be surprised if Tatars ends up even higher on the list. Teutons have to be B tier. I think they're a little bit in the same boat as Slavs, where cheaper farming, monk resistance, which is quite useful these days. Cheaper farming, you can even open archers and just like have a faster castlage because you save so much wood on the farms. Great knight play in castlage despite missing husbandry. A lot of good things. If you get to imp, you have 13 range castles as well, which can be super good on Arabia. But yeah, you do miss the flexibility and the ranged options to the point where late game you become quite stuck in your composition. You don't even have light cav, you're stuck with scout cavalry, so in terms of cavalry units you can pretty much only make paladin. Infantry, you have great halbs, siege honours, Teutonic knights are cheaper now, bomber cannons. So there's potential there, but you're just missing those ranged options that become so crucial in the late game. And Hussar as well, or light cap for that matter. As soon as gold is out, Teutons kind of fall flat on their face. If husbandry, A tier, I agree. If Teutons had husbandry, I would probably also feel like they could be A tier. Turks, also a B tier civilization. Light cap for free is super nice in today's meta and today's way of playing Arabia. You can always play cav archers with extra HP in Imperial Age. Janissaries are still an amazing unit, although you don't see them much on Arabia. Gold mining upgrade, or you mine gold faster, so going archers or gold units is still pretty solid with Turks, but still you don't have that oomph that pushes them above B tier. But of course, getting free Hussar as well in early Imperial Age is also very nice, so the longevity of the gameplay for Turks is very good. 14 range bomber cannons. If you end up in a stalemate situation, Turks might be one of the civs with the best late game, because you also have siege rams. Now the only thing you're missing is obviously elite skirms, halberdier, even pikemen. So trash wars are not great for Turks, but as long as gold is still part of the game, Turks can absolutely dominate any civilization. We have 2 civs left. Vietnamese. I think Vietnamese are A tier. A lot of people might be surprised about this, but they have a flexible tech tree. You can play knights. You can play scouts into knights. You can play elephants, archers with more HP, skirms with more HP, cav archers with more HP. Rattan archers are a great unit as the game goes on. You have bombard cannons. You have Imperial Age skirmisher. You have halberdier. Vietnamese just has everything and does everything pretty well. I think also the battle elephants that I mentioned earlier are extremely underrated for Vietnamese. I think you have 450 HP on those bad boys, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. Maybe it's 420. I think it's 420 now that I say it out loud. Either way, that unit as well, when you play like cost-effective Imperial skirms, etc., you can suddenly bank up a bit of gold, and if you can make an elephant switch then with 420 HP, that is nuts. I played them once against Hindustanis, not the best example, but I just felt like he had nothing that could beat me. Of course it is Hindustanis, but point being, I think Vietnamese have so much potential and so many bonuses that benefit today's meta in Arabia that they cannot be lower than A tier. You save all the wood on the eco upgrades as well, so you can maybe even sneak in horse color in feudal age. Amazing civilization, really underrated, and I think they have pretty good showing in King of the Desert as well. And the last but not least, my people, Vikings. Easy as... no, just kidding. Ooh, Vikings is a tricky one for me. I feel like a lot of players would place them A tier, but I personally feel like they are a B tier civilization. I don't think the changes that happened to them recently have pushed them suddenly up to an A tier. Obviously, they still have an amazing economy, but I feel like your tech tree is just a bit lackluster. You lack mobility, and I think the free wheelbarrow and free handcart does not compensate that mobility when it comes to some of these other civilizations. Like, if you ask me, if we look through the A tier civs, which civ would I rather have? Byzantines or Vikings? Byzantines. Dravidians is a bit skeptical. I still think I would pick Dravidians. Ethiopians or Vikings? I would go Ethiopians. Franks or Vikings? I would go Franks. Gujara Vikings, Gujara, Huns, Britons, Lithuanian, Mongols, Tatars, Vietnamese. I would like all these civs over Vikings because they have also a great economy, but I feel like their tech tree is way more suited for Arabia. Vikings are still shut into that box of the only thing you can play pretty much is like crossbow, skirm, maybe you mix in some knights without bloodlines, and then your transition to imp is like, well, I have to go arbalest, I have to go skirm, and then I have to try and transition to infantry. I still think Vikings are probably overrated in today's meta. They can still beat any civ in the game, just like a lot of the other civs, but I think they're overrated by many people, and I think they're not higher than B tier. Although they might be like on the top of the B tier list, but still, they're not A tier in my opinion. Alright, now I have in front of me, I have my tier list from before and the new tier list. I'm gonna see. So the new entries into S tier for this list is Khmer and Malay. I think that's fair, also given what we saw in King of the Desert, for example. So I think the fact that I sit here and say that we have 8 S tier civilizations is also amazing in my opinion, because I think that also goes to show how many good civs there are in this game today and how balanced the game is today. Now, of course, keep in mind this is just my opinion. A lot of you might still disagree with that and might think that 3-4 of these do not belong in S tier, but hey, that's opinions, right? You will surely let me know in the comments. So the A tier list has had a couple of civs drop out. It was quite crowded though before, so that kind of makes sense. And we of course saw that Bengalis has been pushed into B tier. So there you have it. I would say my prediction for how the tier list was going to play out was still pretty solid. Now, of course, again, these are all like, I'm comparing my opinion with my opinion. So it's like, there's going to be not too much overlap, most likely. So it's not shocking that I sit here now and say, oh, I was pretty accurate with my opinion, because that's my opinion. And this is my opinion of my opinion. So there you go. If I was to put Romans in on this list, I would put them A tier at the moment. I still don't know. I haven't played them yet. I don't know how the economy bonus is going to impact them. Maybe the 5% of everything is going to make them just feel amazing and therefore be an S tier civ. But I think the tech tree leaves a little bit to be desired, although I haven't tried the Centurions and Legionaries properly, so there's a chance I'm completely off there. But I still think like a Chinese probably should beat Romans. And before we close off, I want to have a quick look at some other lists. This is Hera's recent list. I think he made this a couple of days ago. As you can see, he has all the same civs we have on S tier, except that I also have Aztecs there. I also have Malay there. For him, both of them are in the A tier. Again, I don't know if this is in order as well within the tiers. I have not arranged them in order within the tiers. There is a chance he has done that. I don't know. But see, he has Vikings in A tier. I think that's overrated, but obviously opinions and playstyles. But all the other civs I also have in my A tier. Ooh, Bengal is D tier. Oh boy, oh boy. It's in B tier. Oh yeah. Turk Spanish. And say he has Huns in C tier. Well, I think Huns is a very, very good civilization. Slavs as well in D tier. Damn. And I'm like thinking Slavs could be like A tier. So to summarize, I think me and Hera have a lot of similar opinions on most of the civs, but as you can see, some of them are definitely a slight difference in opinion. But of course, he's the reigning King of the Desert champion, so probably his list makes more sense than ours. And the one we're looking at right now is Mr. Yo's most recent tier list. So he has Aztecs, Chinese, Portuguese, Mayans, Incas, and Mayans in the S tier. Okay, he does not put Malay or Khmer in S tier. He puts Aztecs in S tier. This also goes to show, like, playstyle-wise. Like a Yo, who also likes the Burgundians, like Wall and Coustelier play, for example. Yo is not necessarily a guy that takes advantage of the Tatar thumb ring timing, so he has Tatars in B tier, while me and Hera value Tatars as A tier, for example. Yo also loves to play humans, so that makes sense. He also has Huns in C tier, so I guess I'm one of the few that like Huns still very much. But at least he has Bengalis in C tier. Oh, he has Goth in the bottom tier, Koreans as well. Ooh, so 3 of the top 4 players, you've seen the list now. While a lot of the civs are in the same, there's still like some that jump up and down 2 and 3 levels even. I think that's also a good testament to the balance in the game, that people can have such different opinions on a civilization. Again, make sure that you leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and give me your opinion. What do you think is right? Who has the best list out of me, Yo, and Hera? And who has the worst list, if you will? And I will also leave a link in the description to the tier list maker in case you want to make your own list. But with that said, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.